Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss one of the chapter of class 9, chapter 4, structure of the atom. So we are going to discuss about the structure of the atom, chapter 4, class 9, general science. So about atom, we have learned in the same class in the chapter 3. This in the last chapter we have learned about the atom, what is atom, how does it exist, and many theories we have learned, Dalton atomic theory also we have learned. There we have seen that atom is indivisible. 2 points we got, atom is indivisible, number one. And number two is why one atom is different from the another atom. How different and why different. And whether is it actually indivisible. So there the question arises in our mind. And we will try to understand all these facts in this chapter throughout the discussion. Now, the first point, that is indivisible. So that one, if we try to understand, then we can understand that one from the static electricity. We know that if we have learned earlier also in our lower classes, if we dry hair when we comb, then after that comb attracts a small pieces of small paper, so that the comb becomes the charged one. Now the question arises that from where the charged particle came, where this charged particle came from. Now, if nothing is there in the atom that is indivisible, then from where the charged particle came in that form, so that it becomes the charged one. So in that sense, you can say that atom consists of many particles. From that point of view, we can say that inside atom, some other particles are there, and atom is divisible, and it consists of certain types of other particles. In this sense, in 1900th century, J.J. Thomson discovered electron present in atom. J.J. Thomson discovered electron. Electron is one type of particle present in an atom. And even before that, almost in 1886, E. Goldstein, identified positive charge particles also there inside the atom. Now, in an experiment in discharge tube, we have seen that different types of new types of radiation, some positive radiations, and consist of positive particles. That is, that radiation is made up of positive particles. Now, question arises. That means in the atom, J.J. Thomson discovered electron, which is denoted by E, and it is negatively charged, so denoted by E negative. Even before, Goldstein discovered positive charged particles denoted by P positive. So these are the particles present in an atom. E for electron, and this one name later on is named as proton. P for proton, E for electron. P is positively charged particle, E is negatively charged particle. And the mass of this one is almost very negligible, but mass of this one is almost 2000 times of electron. Mass of this one is almost 2000 times of that electron. Now, from this fact we can understand that in an atom, inside the atom consists of these are the two particles, electron and proton. J.J. Thomson discovered electron in his experiment. This experiment in our syllabus it is not there, so in our classes we can learn. and you can understand also. Before that, Goldstein discovered positive charge particle, that is proton, and this one both having the same amount of charge, so one of them balancing another, both are present inside the atom and one of them balancing another, and that's why one atom is electrically neutral, because this one is negatively charged, this one is positively charged. In an atom, it is in that number of negatively charged particle and number of positive charged particle both are same. So both are there inside the atom. Atom consists of electron and proton. This is now clear from our discussion there. Now the question arises how they are staying inside the atom, and what is the structure of the atom. That we will discuss in our chapter, structure of the atom. Many scientists came and did the research on that, and many documents submitted, many research they have expressed, research model also they have given. But one of the model given by Thomson, Thomson told that in an atom, suppose this is the atom, in an atom like this, negative charge particles are there. We can say that this is like during Christmas party, that pudding is prepared. In that pudding, some sorts of other particles are there, and or you can say that in a watermelon, these are the seeds representing the electron, and the remaining part representing the proton. That means edible part, the red color edible part representing the positive charge particle, that is the proton, and in that, inside that, black color seeds, these are representing the negatively charged electron. So this is the Thomson's model of an atom. Thomson's given this one. This is Thomson model of an atom. Thomson's model. This is Thomson's model of an atom, and Thomson's proposed that an atom consists of positively charged pair, and the electrons are abundant on it, like that, positively charged pair and electrons are abundant on it. This one representing electron and this part representing proton. So he proposed that positively charged pair, in that electrons are abundant. And number two, the negative and positive charge are equal in magnitude. Both the charged particles are equal in magnitude. That's why this is electrically neutral. But later, Rutherford given one model of an atom. We will discuss now the Rutherford model. Rutherford's model. Rutherford's model of an atom. So Ernest Rutherford, he was interested in knowing how the electrons are arranged, within an atom, and for this he designed one experiment with alpha particles, that is fast moving alpha particles. In that experiment, he has taken one gold foil, thin gold foil, and allow these fast moving alpha particles to fall on that gold foil. He selected a gold foil because he wanted a thin layer as possible. And later, alpha particles are, what are alpha particles? What are alpha particles? Alpha particles are doubly charged helium ions. Since they have mass of 4 units, the fast moving alpha particles have a considerable amount of energy. The mass of alpha particle is 4 units of that of helium ion, and so when it moves, it provides certain considerable amount of energy. And expecting that when this alpha particle will strike the thin gold foil, and that alpha particles will be deflected from that gold foil. How these deflections occur and from where these alpha particles are deflecting, this is expecting. This is the expectation before that experiment, that thin gold foil is placed somewhere at a distance, and from another point, these fast moving alpha particles are allowed to fall on that gold foil. And it was observed from the far side that how these alpha particles are deflected from that gold foil, and from where deflection is there, and expecting that this will be deflected. Now let's see what happened. This thin gold foil, is made up of so many atoms of gold. Now from there, alpha particles are allowed to fall. From there, alpha particles are allowed to fall. Now these alpha particles, these alpha rays when falling at the center, it is observed that from the center it returns back. And the rays of alpha particle which are falling little away from the center, that is deflected like this. And the rays of alpha particles which are falling on the far away from the center, these are passing through like this. So these are the conclusions. So simply if we draw one single diagram, single atom, then we can understand better. Suppose this is an atom, and alpha rays which is falling on the center of the atom, this is coming back again. Near the center which is falling, this is deflecting like this. Away from the center which is falling, this one passing through the center, gold foil like this. So Rutherford did this experiment, and observed that most of the fast moving alpha particles are passing straight through the gold foil, and some of the alpha particles which are passing through near the center, these are deflecting, and the rays of alpha particles which is falling on the center, this is directly coming back, returning back. Now the question arises that why this one is returning back. That means earlier Rutherford was expecting that deflection will be there. Yes, it is observed there is a deflection. Now question arises that what is there in the middle of this atom, that from where this ray returns back, and what is there by deflecting like this, what is there which is passing through this. So these are the questions arise in the mind, and following the similar reason, Rutherford concluded from this alpha scattering experiment that most of the space inside the atom is empty, because most of the alpha particles passed through the gold foil without getting deflected. Most of the alpha particles passing through the gold foil without any deflection. So he concluded that these spaces are empty, and very few particles are deflected from their path. Very few particles are deflected from their path, indicating that positive charge, something positive there, because alpha particles are positive in nature. Now, something there must be positive, that's why this deflections occur. And in the center of the atom, in the middle of the atom, something positive must be there, for due to which these positive rays of light coming back, that is returning back from the center. Very few particles are deflected from their path, indicating that positive charge of the atom occupy very little space. That means very few particles are deflecting from the center or near the center. That means it indicates that in the atom a limited space is occupied. In an atom, limited space is occupied by the positive charge particles. Something they are positive, for which, due to which this deflection occurs. Something they are positive, due to which this one returning back from the center. A very few fractions of alpha particles are deflected 180 degree, indicating that all the positive charge of the mass of the gold atom are concentrated in a very small volume within the atom. That means in this atom, in this is one gold atom. In this gold atom, in the middle something positive there, and he has concluded that all the positive charge confined in a center, and from which 180 degree deflection is there. And near this positive charge particle, positive things, this small deflection taking place, and other than this small space, maximum spaces are empty, and that's why these rays are passing through this. Now, on the basis of experiment, Rutherford put forwarded the nuclear model, and in his model he has told that there is positively charged center in an atom called nucleus. He named later this one as nucleus. Positively charged nucleus, which is at the center of an atom. Nearly all the mass of an atom resides in the nucleus. The electrons revolve around the nucleus in a circular path. He concluded that this is the positively charged particles, and here negative charged particles are here. So since this positive ray is going and crossing the negative one, so that's why directly passing. And here the positive charge, so intensity of deflection they are less, they are near the positive charge, very small, and most of the spaces is covered by the empty space, and that empty space is recognized as occupied by electron, that is negatively charged. And the size of the nucleus is very small as compared to the size of the atom. Size of the nucleus is very small as compared to the atom. So this is about the Rutherford model of an atom. So he has discovered the nucleus of an atom, and at the center of the atom he told that nucleus is there at the center of the atom, which is positively charged, and because of which these positively charged alpha rays are deflecting, and deflection there, and in one point, that is at the center, very few rays are 180 degree deflecting. So this is named as nucleus, and surrounding the nucleus maximum spaces are occupied by negatively charged particles, that is electron. And also he told that since this is positively charged and this is negatively charged, so there is an attraction, and for which these negatively charged charges are continuously revolving surrounding the nucleus. That means these negatively charges are continuously revolving surrounding the nucleus. Now the question arises that if these negatively charged particles are continuously revolving surrounding the nucleus, automatically they will lose their energy. If they lose their energy, then they will come and fall on the nucleus, because this is positively charged. So, which is impossible. Electrons will not fall in the nucleus. So this is the drawbacks of Rutherford's atomic model. I think you understand that drawbacks of Rutherford atomic model means these negatively charged particles are revolving around the nucleus, and continuously if they revolve with a high speed, then automatically they will lose their energy. And since positives are attracted towards negative particles are attracted towards the center, that is the positively charged nucleus, ultimately they may fall on the nucleus, which is quite impossible. So it is not possible. So that's why this is the drawbacks of Rutherford experiment. That means Rutherford was not able to describe the movement or rotation of or the position of electron in an atom, but he has discovered nucleus of the atom, which is positively charged. Now, after the drawback, the question arises that how these electrons are present in an atom. How these electrons are present in an atom. So this is explained by Bohr's model. Bohr's model of an atom. From there we can understand that how these electrons are present in an atom. Now Bohr's model of an atom, since that we understood that in an atom, as J.J. Thomson discovered electron there, and in the middle of the atom nucleus is there, which is positively charged. That means that nucleus is made up of proton, because proton is also positive, nucleus is also positive as discovered by Rutherford. So nucleus is positive, so nucleus is made up of positively charged particles, that is proton, and surrounding this nucleus electrons are there, that is also we understood. Now the question arises, how these electrons are staying inside the atom surrounding the nucleus. That means in an atom electron and protons are there, this is clear to us. Now how these electrons and protons are staying inside the atom and how these electrons are staying inside the atom, this we are going to discuss now. This is explained by Bohr's model. In his model, Bohr explained that only certain special orbit known as discrete orbits, of electrons are allowed inside the atom. While revolving in discrete orbit, the electrons do not radiate energy. While revolving the discrete orbit, electrons do not radiate energy. If electrons do not radiate energy, then definitely their energy will not be lost. So that means that in a discrete orbit, that is their definite orbit, they are revolving. So that means they are in the middle nucleus. Their definite shells are there. This one is nucleus, positively charged. Here the electrons are there in that definite orbit, they are revolving. He has named the orbit as this one K, L, M, N, like that. K, L, M, N shells. These are also called shells, and he named starting from K shell, that means N equal to 1. K shell, that means N equal to 1. They are N equal to 2. They are N equal to 3. They are N equal to 4. So K, L, M, N, like these names are given. These are the shells. In the definite shells or orbit, these electrons are revolving. Then question arises that in definite shells and orbit, if electrons are revolving, then in which orbit how many electrons can revolve? And in one orbit, maximum number of electrons, how many there is. So there the question arises. Before discussing the number of electrons, how many can stay in one orbit, another subatomic particles is discovered by J. Chadwick in 1932. Another subatomic particles discovered by J. Chadwick in 1932, and it was observed that that subatomic particle does not have any charge. That subatomic particles is denoted by N, that is neutron. That subatomic particles named as neutron, denoted by N, it does not have any charge. So neutral, from the word neutral, the name given neutron. From the word neutral, the name given neutron. So it is clear from our discussion that how that by which experiment this Chadwick discovered this neutron, because this is not in our syllabus. In higher classes you will get it. So till now in our syllabus only Rutherford model is there. How the Rutherford discovered this nucleus. This one there we understood from that discussion. Now from till now we understood that in an atom 3 subatomic particles are there. Electron, proton and neutron. Electron denoted by A negative, proton is P, neutron is N. P positive sign may not be given, no problem. So these are the symbols of charged particles. This is negatively charged, this one is positively charged, this one is neutral. So these are the subatomic particles present in an atom. So from that fact we understand that electron is not indivisible, it is divisible, and these are the particles we can get in an atom. Now the next point, earlier as I had discussed in my introduction, that how one atom is different from another atom. That also we'll understand, and also we'll try to understand that how these electrons are staying inside an atom and which orbit how many numbers of electrons can stay. This is given by one scheme that is called Bohr-Barry scheme. Bohr-Barry scheme. Bohr-Barry. Bohr and Barry both together given one formula, 2n square formula. N equal to 1, 2, 3. Now if n equal to 1, then 2 into 1 square, that means 2. N equal to 2, 2 into 2 square, that means 8. N equal to 3, 2 into 3 square, that means 18. So in the first orbit, that means in the K shell, maximum number of electrons can stay is 2 according to their scheme. In the first orbit, that is in the K shell, maximum number of electrons can stay is 2. In L shell, maximum can stay 8. In M shell, 18. So this is the scheme given by Bohr and Barry. It is 2n square formula. N is the number of orbit or shell. Putting the value of n, we can get the number of how many number of electrons can stay in the orbit. Maximum number of electrons can stay in which orbit, how many. This is we can understand from their scheme. But there is also a restriction. This is followed up to argon. This is followed up to argon. After argon, this cannot be followed. So this is separate discussion. We will later in another day we will discuss in any other chapter or in higher classes you will get it. That will be discussed. How after argon and why not after argon. Now, up to argon, this formula is satisfied. We will try to understand that one also from now. Now, for this, we need to remember the atomic number of atom. Atomic number. Now, one atomic number of atom. In earlier classes, I have given one sentence. Hi, hello, little Beryl Brown, cracking nuts on Friday. Nelly's naughty magpie always sings pop songs after killing Kathy. So this is the sentence I have given in earlier class. From that sentence, we can learn easily how to remember the atomic number of the element and also their symbols. And if we can remember the atomic number of the element, then only we can write the electronic configuration of that element. Atomic I am giving again that sentences. Hi, hello, little Beryl Brown cracking nuts on Friday. Nelly's naughty magpie always sings pop song clearly after killing Kathy. So this is the sentence. This is hydrogen, helium, Li lithium, beryllium, Be boron, B carbon, C, then nitrogen N, oxygen O, fluorine F, neon Ne, sodium Na, magnesium Mg, aluminium Al, silicon Si, phosphorus P, sulfur S, chlorine Cl, argon Ar, potassium K, calcium Ca. So from this sentence we can understand the symbol as well as atomic number. This is atomic number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. From there, if I write the symbol, this is hydrogen H, this is helium He, this is lithium Li, this is beryllium Be, this is boron B, this one is carbon, this one is nitrogen, this one oxygen, this one fluorine, this one neon, this one sodium Na, this one magnesium Mg, this one aluminium Al, this one silicon Si, phosphorus P, sulfur S, chlorine Cl, argon Ar, this one potassium K, calcium Ca. So these are the symbols also you can dot. If we are able to remember this sentence, then we can learn how to remember serially the atomic number of these 20 elements as well as their symbols. Their symbols we can get from the every word, first letter or second letter, including second letter, we can get the symbols of this element. Easily we can remember. Now atomic numbers and symbols are remembered by us. Let us try to understand their configuration. Before doing the configuration, let's see that how this in an atom or in an atom of every atom, how the electrons and nucleus, protons, neutrons, they are staying. Suppose hydrogen atomic number is 1. So they are in the middle nucleus. In the middle nucleus, last one, there is number of proton 1 present, neutron also present in the nucleus. Then class 1 atomic number means total number of proton or electron present in an atom. So class 1, that means total number of proton there is 1. Definitely total number of electron also there will be 1. So in the first orbit only 1 electron can stay. Second, helium. Atomic number 2, so plus 2. First orbit maximum 2 electron can stay. So there 1, there another 2. Next, lithium 3. So plus 3. First orbit maximum can stay 2. Then here from that 3 electron 2 has gone, 1 remains. That will go to the second orbit. So the electronic configuration of lithium we can write 2.1. Electronic configuration, this one is 1, this one is 2. So like this, suppose oxygen atomic number is 8, nucleus plus 8. So number of electron is 8. First orbit maximum 2. Second orbit maximum 2. Then 8 minus 2, 6. In second orbit, from that Bohr scheme, we have learned that in second orbit, maximum number of electron can stay 8. So here remaining 6. So easily can stay. So electronic configuration we can write 2.6 like this. If we write electric configuration of chlorine 17, numbers of proton there, atomic number 17, so 17 number proton there, that is in the nucleus. So in the first orbit maximum can stay 2, 1, 2. Second orbit maximum can stay 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 plus 2, 10 gone, remains 7. In the third orbit, maximum number of electrons can stay according to Bohr scheme is 18. There 7 remains, so easily it will go to third orbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So electronic configuration we can write 2.8.7. Next, if we see argon, #18. First orbit maximum number of electron can stay 2. In second orbit maximum number of electron 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remain another 8. In the third orbit maximum number of electron can stay is 18. So 8 can stay easily because it is less than 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So electron configuration argon we can write 2.8.8. So this way we can write the electron configuration, and I think we understood how these electrons are staying inside an atom. How these electrons are staying inside an atom, and when these electrons are revolving in their definite orbit, this is K shell, L shell, M shell. This is K shell, K shell, K shell, L shell. This one is K, this one is L. This one K, this one L. This one only K. This one K. This one K. This one L. This one M. K, L, M. So in K shell, L shell, M shell, this is their definite shell or orbit. In their definite orbit, this is the maximum number of electrons. How many can stay? This is also from their electron configuration, from their arrangement, we can understand. So from this fact, we can understand that when these 2 electrons will revolve around the nucleus, they will not lose their energy. When these 8 electrons will revolve around the nucleus, they also will not lose their energy. When these 7 electrons in the last orbit, when they will also revolve around the nucleus, will not radiate their energy. So that means they will not lose their energy, and they definitely will revolve in a high speed in their definite orbit, and one will not collide with another electron. This electron will not collide with this one. They will always maintain a certain gap between the adjacent electron. Between the adjacent electron, they will always maintain the certain equal gap. So one electron will not strike another, and one electron will not dump another in an atom. And number of electron and number of proton has remained same. So these atom and these atom, all the atoms are electrically neutral. And these atom also having the 17 number of proton, 17 number of electron. 1 proton, 1 electron. 2 proton, 2 electron. From the atomic number, we can understand this. So this in this atom, this is the electronic configuration we can draw from the arrangement of this electron. From this fact, we understand that in an atom, this is the structure of the atom. This is one atom, this is the structure. How these electrons are revolving around the nucleus, where this nucleus is at the center. From the Rutherford point of view experiment, we understood, and Rutherford discovered this nucleus. This is positively charged. In this nucleus, proton there and neutron there. And surrounding the nucleus, these electrons are revolving in their definite orbit, and given by Barry. And later, how many number of electrons, how many can stay in the one orbit, this is given by Bohr and Barry scheme. So from one orbit to another orbit, they will not come and they will not jump, because they will not radiate any energy at the time of revolving in an atom. Now from this fact, we can easily find out the valency of an atom. Valency, that means we can say easily in one sentence, capacity of an atom to react with another atom. How much capacity of one atom having to react with another atom, that is, we can say directly the valency. Or we can understand that valency from the definition of valency, if we say that, we can say the number of electrons from their outermost shell. Number of electrons in an atom from their outermost shell either can take or can release or can share to attain the configuration of nearest noble gas. This is noble gas. The elements or atom in which in the last orbit, if there are 8 electrons, this is noble gas. The elements or atom in which in the last orbit 8 electrons are there, then this is noble gas. Or in helium, 2 electrons, this is also noble gas, because in the first orbit maximum can stay 2. Other than helium, whatever the atoms are there or elements are there, in every element, if they are in the last orbit 8 electrons are there, then this is noble gas. Noble gas, that means having valency 0. That means they will not take part in any reaction. They are stable. They attain the stability. Now, other atoms, other elements are reacting with another element or atom because to attain the valency, because to attain the stability, like them, like the noble gas. So here, this is one noble gas, and this is another. In our board, we can see these are the two noble gases are there. Other than these two, all other whatever they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, they another also there. I have not drawn all. So out of these 6, 2 are noble gases, and these 4 definitely will take part in the reaction. Now, why will they react? Because to attain the stability. Now, this hydrogen having one electron, hydrogen having only one electron, definitely they will not lose this electron. So they will share its electron with another. How many will share? One will share. If this hydrogen take another one in its orbit, if that hydrogen takes another one, that means he will share one. He will definitely, with whom he will share, he will also share one. So in its orbit, another. If he makes 2, then it will be balanced and it will attain the stability like helium. Helium has 2. So hydrogen having 1, another how many require? 1. So valency of hydrogen is valency of hydrogen is 1. From that point of view, understand? Only one having, another one if there, then it will be balanced and it will attain the stability like helium. Helium having 2. One having, another one require. Now valency of helium is 0 because already stable. 2 electrons there. In the first orbit maximum can 2, here 2 already there. Now lithium having 3. In the last orbit 1 there. Now if lithium release this 1 electron, then it will have 2 like helium. So definitely lithium will release 1 electron and valency of lithium is 1. Now oxygen having 6, either it has to release 6 to attain the configuration of like helium, or it has to take another 2, 6 plus 2, 8 to make the configuration like neon. Neon having 2.8, 10 is the atomic number. So either it has to take 2 or it has to release 6. So easy for oxygen to take 2 because it is less than 6. So definitely oxygen will take 2. So valency of oxygen is 2 because oxygen will take 2. Chlorine having 7 in the last orbit, either it has to take 1 to make it 8 or it has to release 7 to keep it up to 8. So definitely this easy for chlorine is to take 1. So chlorine will take 1. So the valency of chlorine is 1 because chlorine will take 1. Valency of argon is 0 because already it has 8 electrons in its last orbit. So this is the valency of the atom. You can understand how many number of electron either can release or can take or can share to attain the configuration of nearest noble gas to attain the stability. That is the valency of the atom. Now atomic number is denoted by Z. Atomic number is denoted by Z. So Z denotes the atomic number. Atomic number means total number of proton in an atom present. There is how many number of proton there, as we have written earlier. Atomic number of oxygen is 8, that means 8 numbers of proton there in oxygen. Atomic number of chlorine is 17, that is 17 numbers of proton there in a chlorine. So whatever the atomic number, that is the number of proton. And in an atom, how many number of proton there, that many number of electron also there, because the atom is electrically neutral, as Thomson told earlier. So number of atoms and number of electron in an atom same. So that's why atomic number representing the number of proton as well as representing the number of electron. If 17 number of proton there, definitely 17 number of electron also will be there. If 8 number of proton there, then definitely 8 number of electron also there in oxygen. If 17 number of proton there in chlorine, then 17 number of electron also there in chlorine. So this is the atomic number denoted by Z. And mass number is denoted by A. Mass number means A equal to Z plus N. N is Newton number. That means at mass number means total number of proton plus neutron. Total number of proton plus neutron in an atom is called mass number. So from that we can find out the atomic number Z equal to A minus N, or we can find out N equal to A minus Z. So these are the formula by which we can find out in an atom how many number of proton, how many number of electron, how many number of neutron, and what is the mass number of the atom. So that can be found out easily by these formulas. So mass number of atom denoted by A, and A equal to total number of proton plus total number of neutron. And suppose X, how to write the symbol of the atom? Suppose X is the atom. So atomic number always we are writing there, and mass number we are writing there. So this is the way to write the symbol of an atom. Atomic number is in the left hand side of the symbol of atom, suffix atomic number and superscript mass number. So Z denotes atomic number, A denotes mass number. So this is the way to represent an atom symbolically. Next, isotope. Isotopes and isobars. Both are opposite one another. Both are opposite one another. Isotopes means same atomic number but different mass number. For example, H11, H12, H13. These are the isotopes of hydrogen. So this is called protium, this is deuterium, this is tritium. These are the name of isotopes of hydrogen. Same atomic number, 1, 1, 1. At suffix we are writing atomic number, and superscript we are writing the mass number. So 1, 1, 1, these are the atomic number. Atomic number, same atomic number, symbol hydrogen. So having the same atomic number but mass number different. So here in protium, H11, Z equal to 1, that means P equal to 1, that means E equal to 1, that means N equal to 0, and A equal to since 1. A equal to 1, so that means Z plus N, so N is 0, so Z equal to 1. Now H21, in this case Z equal to 1, then A equal to 2, obviously N equal to A minus Z, that means 2 minus 1, that means 1. Here number of neutron 1, number of proton is 1, and number of electron also 1. In this case, Z equal to 1, A equal to 3, N equal to 2, proton 1, electron 1. So in all these three cases, you can see this number of neutrons differing. Here number of neutron 0, here number of neutron 1, there number of neutron 2. So protium, deuterium, tritium, these are the isotopes of hydrogen. All these are the isotopes of hydrogen. So like this, many elements are there which having the isotopes. Chlorine also having isotope, carbon having their isotopes, and many isotopes are used in the different treatments of the cancer, also in treatments of the many other diseases, also in medical science the isotopes are used mainly. Now isobars, just opposite of isotope. Opposite of isotope is isobar. Suppose argon, atomic number 18 but mass number 40. Calcium, atomic number 20, mass number 40. So they are mass number same but different atomic number. Since atomic number different, so element will be different, atom will be different. The atom different but mass number same. So this is isobar. That means atoms having the same mass number but different atomic number is called isobar, and atoms having the same atomic number but different mass number is isotope. Same mass number, different atomic number, isobar. Same atomic number, different mass number, isotope. So I think I wish that you understood. This is the chapter, all about whole chapter. And if you have any problem that at night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. you can call me and you can ask any question to clear your doubts and worries. You go through the discussion, also try to relate my discussion with the textbook chapters. I think you understand better, and go through all the line by line in the textbook and relate the whole discussion with the textbook. And after that, you try to answer all the questions whatever given the exercise, inside and main exercise. I wish that you can answer all the questions. Thank you.